What's up, guys? Welcome to the Metal Roofing channel. I'm Thad Barnette. Today I've got Adam Mazzella from Sheffield Metals and New Tech Machinery. Thanks for being here, Adam.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, so we're talking tariffs and market update for both steel and aluminum. On April 2nd, we heard some news about some new tariffs being imposed, some additional reciprocal type tariffs being imposed. We're filming this on April 4th to be released on April 9th. So it was about 1 week, well, exactly 1 week from the time of the announcement to when this video will come out. So we want to talk a little bit about what was announced and how the markets are reacting in the short term to those tariff announcements.
Sure. So in the very short term, I would say most of the knee-jerk reaction has already happened. So, I think everybody's kind of waiting. There's a lot of reaction, a lot of buildup, a lot of things that have happened over the last 60 or so days. So when it finally happened, Liberation Day finally happened, it was sort of anticlimactic other than that it's formalized at this point. So what we're seeing is kind of where the market is going to go, where it's going to flow. Markets have sort of stabilized when we're talking about the steel world. The CRU has kind of been tepid. CRU futures, same. Nothing's going crazy. When we first started doing the market updates about 2 months ago in anticipation, things have kind of calmed down. Now, What does that really mean? What's going to shake out? It's going to take some time for inventories. These are imports that people were bringing in to try to beat the tariffs. These are things that are still on the water, still coming in. And domestic production is still fairly strong. So it's going to take some time for people to work through inventories. Some of these inventories may be a little bit less expensive than where the market is today. It's just a matter of what's going to happen with demand. So if demand, in my opinion, if demand stays steady to strong, I would still anticipate some additional increases. If demand starts to fade, it could be for a number of reasons. There's going to be some upward pressure causing inflation as a byproduct of these tariffs. How much, where in the economy, where it happens, that's still sort of waiting to be seen. But what I would say is that we're going to see a little bit, I would say, softness over the next couple of months here as people kind of feel out what this new world looks like. But I'm fully expecting things to start being very strong from an economic perspective where, if these tariffs are forcing things back into America, doing things in America doesn't really make things expensive. If we were to start saying, well, we still want all of this demand, all of this foreign product, that's going to start making things expensive. Saying, hey, you need to tack 15, 25%, 35% on, depending on where you get the product from, that will cause things to be more expensive. So, the flat-rolled coated product industry is a strong, healthy industry in the United States. I would anticipate utilization starting to go up over the next few months, and I would anticipate the economy starting to ramp back up as a byproduct as more cash is available in the economy.
So as that demand increases and we have these tariffs, potentially remain in place, does that mean that people buying steel are going to be switching to domestic suppliers more?
Yeah, I think that's inevitable. Now, it's just a matter of if foreign steel prices are going to remain at a certain level and domestic steel prices start to rise to that level, then you'll start to see more foreign coming in, and foreign will be able to compete with that domestic. So that's sort of where I anticipate it going is foreign steel kind of being at a fixed level, and then the domestic price probably getting near that or hovering right around that. And there's still a number of import countries that aren't impacted by the tariffs. So that, to some degree, will keep the domestic mills in check a little bit.
So it's safe to say that the markets were kind of braced for impact leading up to April 2nd, and then once that news came down, it's kind of shaken out.
Yeah, and again, we'll see where things kind of ultimately, what you said, shake out. But the market is generally forward leaning, and we're just reporting the news. So, when we see things happening, we've seen the increases, we've passed the increases on to our customers. We are anticipating some still upward pressure, but it's not as dramatic as where we were looking 2 months ago and saying, hey, be prepared, brace yourself, brace your business, brace your customers on what's coming next. So I would say that initial jolt has happened. We got to really wait and see how the market kind of always corrects itself.
Totally, yeah. And we'll talk about long-term in a second, but let's talk about aluminum in the short term. How's the aluminum markets reacted?
Sure. So the aluminum market is kind of measured in two phases. There's the import world, which is pretty much everywhere outside of the United States. That's kind of the LME. The LME is really soft right now, but production internationally is still strong. So sort of what that means to me is the LME is weak and declining. Production foreign, outside of the United States is strong, but everything coming in has a tariff. Conversely, the Midwest average, which is the index we use in the United States predominantly, that is still strong. That still has room to go up and north. The LME is a little bit bearish and the Midwest average is a little bit more bullish. What that means to the domestic market is that I think there is some upward mobility for the aluminum pricing to continue to rise.
So if the international market and the domestic market are kind of offset for aluminum, what does that mean when it comes to trickling down to price for end users, contractors, people that live in our world?
So, it's not that the import supply is turned off. So, the import supply still had tariffs on it going back to 232 6 years ago. Yeah. So there was a tariff on it. It went from 10% to 25%. So just want to remind people that there was a tariff. The LME product coming in is now holistically receiving a tariff, not just selective countries. So I would say with domestic aluminum demand, with what's going on in the domestic market, there's been a couple of mills that have been shut down. There's more mills coming online. I would anticipate, following the Midwest average. The Midwest average is looking like it's going to be, going up. So I would anticipate aluminum increases.
So we talked a little bit about short term. What about in the long term? So we got this news April 2nd. I feel like a lot of people were kind of holding their breath, waiting to see what happens. But just because the news was announced, does that mean we know what's going to happen now?
No. I think we keep hearing, from the federal government, things are going to be booming, things are going to be booming, things are going to be booming. Looking at the stock market the last few weeks, it doesn't look like it's booming. The market will eventually correct itself. I would say there will be some pent-up demand. I just think naturally, in times of uncertainty, people generally don't spend money. When they see more certainty, money has a way of being let free, let loose via the consumer, via the government, via business. So I think we're going on a pretty long stretch of people kind of holding on to their money. Coming out of an election year, going into this year, complete different, we'll say, regime change with the entire federal government and all three branches. And as people start to get more comfortable, inevitably, they will start doing more things with their money and they will start spending their money. So I think it'll take a couple of months, but I do envision the second half of 2025 being way stronger, short of a black swan event happening in the economy or in the world.
Yeah, and we talk about, again, our world is standing seam metal roofing, gutters, siding, things like that. We talk about that as being a luxury, like high-end product, but more and more people are switching to metal roofs, and it doesn't matter what's happening in the economy. Yeah. People are going to need roofs, especially with the increased storm activity, things like that. And many people are switching over to metal, and even in certain states, legislation, insurance requirements are driving more people to metal. So there's that aspect of the demand as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So regardless of what happens, in the future, because nobody has that crystal ball, we say that all the time. But what should customers of Sheffield Metals, a metal roofing supplier, be thinking about right now with this news?
Sure. So again, I don't know that we can go and say, go buy more metal or go buy less metal. It's always a good time to protect your business. I don't think that we're in this good betting spot. So like if you said, hey, you have $1 million to go buy some steel or buy some aluminum, I don't know that I would. The way I sort of see things is I believe the market will continue to go up more gradual than it has been over the last 60 days. But it could also go down a little bit. I don't envision it going back down to where it was, we'll say 6 months ago. But I would say right now, I think we're sort of in this calm time, even though it's been chaotic the last 2 months. We're sort of in this calm time. We're waiting to see what the tariffs do. waiting to see what the future markets do, or waiting to see this demand, which we're going, in my opinion, I think there's some pent up demand, but where is it? It's got to come out.
You know, we talk about protecting your bid, staying close to your supplier, all of that still applies. And in fact, I think you and I need to do a video about how to protect your bid, what that looks like,
Sure.
what you should put into contracts, how you should talk to customers. If you'd like to see that video, comment down below. We'll get to work on it. So, Adam, appreciate you being here today.
Thanks for having me, Thad.
Absolutely. Subscribe here to the Metal Roofing channel. Comment down below with any questions. As always, I'm Thad Barnette. We'll catch you next time.